Hey guys, so today we are going to be doing a project that is based on a type of art making that I absolutely love, and that is collage. So in case you aren't really familiar with this word, let's go over it really fast. So a collage is an artwork made by gluing different materials together on a page. And here I just kind of have some different ideas of what maybe those materials might be. So the biggest thing about these materials is that these are kind of just things that you already have, things that are already made. So instead of using pencils or colored pencils to set out and draw something, or using paints to paint something new to make an artwork, we're taking things that already exist. So old drawings, painted paper, stuff that we have already created, or maybe will create just quickly in order to do this project. Things like fabric, photos, as long as you have permission to use those photos. Same with magazine and newspaper clippings. Make sure before you use any of these things and start cutting things up that you have permission from whoever is responsible in your household. But these are all materials that are already made for you. So you're just taking these things, you're going to cut them up into different shapes, however you like them, and then you're going to take some glue and you're going to glue them down and glue everything together on a page. And you can choose to use only one of these types of things. You could make a collage that's entirely out of stuff from magazines. You can make one that's all painted paper, or you can choose maybe 2 or 3 or all of them. So I might make a collage with photos, pieces of fabric, stuff from newspaper, and some painted paper and old drawings that I have. So I did say that collage was something that I really love to do. When I make my own artwork, I don't really like having a plan before I go in to make it. I like making things where I can just start with a little bit of a doodle, or just start with a few, if I'm doing a collage, start with maybe a few magazine clippings just glued down on a piece of paper, and then kind of work from there. So whatever I see, maybe I'll just pick up another piece of that clipping and say, oh, I like the way that looks over here. I don't like having a real plan for my artwork before I get started on it. And you guys will get a little bit more of a sense of that after we start in on this project. And you might decide that you like that too, or maybe that you prefer to have more of a plan, and that's okay. You can do that too with collage. You can have a plan. And for this project, we're gonna have a little bit of a loose plan. We're gonna have a little bit of a loosey-goosey plan to start out with on our collage, but it's only gonna take us so far, and you have a lot of freedom within that plan to take your collage and make it the way that you'd like it to be. So that loosey-goosey idea is this. We are going to be making a self-portrait. So a self-portrait, probably the first thing you think about is a drawing or artwork that looks like your face, or just looks like you. And a self-portrait can definitely be that. But instead of making something that looks exactly like our face, we are going to focus on making something that represents us as a portrait that doesn't so much look like a normal portrait that actually looks like your face. So in order to start doing that, we are going to take out a little piece of paper, and you can write these prompts down if you'd like, or you can just write down as I do when I read these out. And this is going to help you start planning out maybe what materials you want to use and how you might arrange them on your paper when you start making your collage. So this is how we're having just a little bit of a loosey-goosey plan. So since this is going to represent us without really looking like us necessarily, we are going to start thinking about what our favorite things are. So these are just a few ideas. So what's your favorite color? And make sure you write these down so you can look at them later when you're looking around for what you might use. So my favorite color is green. So I'm going to write that down for my own reference. So hobbies, what kind of things do you like to do? So I really like to make art. I like to exercise. And I like to listen to music. So I'm just going to write down music. And then food or drink you like. So I really like sushi, and I also really like tea. So I'm gonna write that down too. And then what's your favorite animal, or maybe a list of your favorite animals? I really like cats, and I also like possums. So I'm just gonna have my little list here, and what you're gonna do with this list, since this is a list of some of your favorite things, and if you have other things that don't fit in these categories, feel free to write those down too, just to get your mind working, start brainstorming things that could represent you in a collage. So now that I have this list, I'm gonna look at it and think about what materials I might use. So I could use just one of these things and go from there with my collage, or I can choose to use just a couple, or I can really incorporate all of them into my collage, just whatever you decide you like. So I might choose to do something with cats, something with tea, and something with the color green, and then leave out everything else. Or I might just do something with the color green and music, and that's all. Just anything that you think is going to really represent you the most, focus on that for your self-portrait here. And really, when you start looking through your references and what materials you're going to use, that's really going to help you determine, especially if you use things like magazines or newspapers or photographs, and maybe even drawings, that's going to really help you determine which of these things you're going to include. And it might also help you a lot with figuring out things that maybe you didn't think to include in this list. Really looking at your materials and what's available to you is also going to help you out a lot when you're thinking about things that are going to represent you in your self-portrait collage. So once you have your list all brainstormed out and you've looked at all of those objects that you've written down and really thought about what materials you might be able to use, go out and actually find those materials and make sure that you have permission to be cutting up and using those materials before you do anything with them to start creating your artwork. So in the list of materials I gave you, I said you could use painted paper or paper that you'd already drawn on, or some old drawings. So we're going to talk about how to make maybe painted paper or drawn on paper, in case that's something that you're not really sure what that means. So I have just some watercolors here and some paper. You see I've already started adding some colors to it, and that's really all I'm going to do. I'm just adding some colors. So I'm going to dip into my red over here and just add these wherever you like them. So basically all you're going to do with painted paper is you're just going to get some paints, whatever kind of paint you want to use. You can see I've already started here. And I'm just going to add colors wherever I like them. So this doesn't have to look any type of way. You can really just use one single color if you'd like that. You can make designs in it, so I can do like polka dots around here. You can really make it look however you want. I mean, this is just painted paper that we are going to be cutting up and adding to our collage, cutting up and gluing into our collage. Something else about the painted paper and the drawn on paper, you don't have to use this in your collage if you start making it and then you start making your collage and then you realize, I don't really know that this painted paper really fits in here. Or you can just use a tiny little bit of it, and then maybe you can save that painted paper. Maybe if you like the way it looks, you can just save it and show it off like an artwork, or you can save it and do more collages with it later on that maybe would fit with the painted paper. So outside of painted paper, you can also use paper that you've just drawn on or doodled on, and you can also use old drawings, and I'm gonna be doing that for mine as well. So to make drawn on paper, you can see I've just kind of taken some different colors of crayons and kind of made some swirls, so that I've made little squiggles, or just made big lines all across the paper. You can just use really any colors that you want. I've made sure to include some green in here because I do have that. That's one of my favorite colors. So I'm going to include that in my drawn on paper. So I'm just going to take a crayon and I'm going to add to this even more. And there's really no rules here. I mean, you can do whatever you want. You can actually draw a picture. So I might draw a cat. I did have that written down as my favorite animal. one of my favorite animals. So maybe I draw a cat in there. Maybe I might draw some tea, because I said that tea was my favorite drink. Your drawn on and painted paper is meant to just look like paper that's drawn on or painted on. I mean, it doesn't really have to look like anything. There's no rules. You're just having fun, kind of scribbling around on some paper. And this can kind of be an artwork in itself. But for this case, we are using this for our collage. So we are back. Now I have chosen all of the things I'm going to be using. So I have some old painted paper. This is the stuff that you saw me do just before this. This is from an old drawing. Something that you can feel free to do. I said that we weren't going to make this look like our face overall. That's not what the collage is doing. It's just going to represent us. But I think I might choose to use this as a representation of my face. And then I just have a bunch of stuff from magazines that some of it went along with my list here. But also, I just started going through and I started finding words that I thought represented me. Roses are my favorite flowers. Indiana is the state where I'm from. I like to teach. New York is one of my favorite places to visit. And then I found a letter that one of my friends wrote me, and this is my first name, Grace. So I might choose to use that too. I've got different flowers. I like having my nails done, as you guys can see. Just some stuff that I like the look of. So like this, I really liked this color, this pattern. I like the way that this skirt looks, this big yellow skirt. Here's some more flowers. So there's just some ideas of some of the things that I pulled out. For my design, feel free to choose whatever you'd like to use for your collage. And I'm going to walk you guys through how I'm going to begin this process. So the main things you're going to need, other than your basic supplies of what you're going to be cutting out and gluing onto your paper, is a paper. You can see this is clearly not cut very evenly. This is just a piece of scrap paper that I found, and I decided it didn't really matter what shape the paper was, so I was just going to do this for fun. So use whatever paper you think you'd like to use. I'm going to use a glue stick. You can use a glue stick, you can use tape, you can use liquid glue, whatever you have, whatever you feel most comfortable with. And then scissors to help you cut out your items. You can cut them out as bulky as you'd like. See how this has a lot of that background space, or I could cut really close to all the edges and get rid of that background space, just whatever you decide. And you can do that for all of them. You don't have to do that for a lot of them. Maybe your scissors using skills aren't super great yet. You're still learning how to use scissors. So maybe cutting out really close to all the lines isn't going to be a great idea for you, and it's not going to work out. You won't be as happy with it. So totally feel free to leave some of that background information in there. And we can overlap these as well and cut out some of that background information by doing that when we put it in our final collage. So really just do whatever you are able to do and whatever makes you happy with your design. So I am going to start out, and I'm not going to try to make this look like anything. I am just going to add in some things that make me happy, some things that I feel like kind of represent me without necessarily looking like me, but things that just make me happy, things that I like. Just kind of arrange those how I like the way they look. So I'm just going to start with something and glue it down and then go from there. And I'm going to kind of cut off some of the background. I'm going to keep some of it too though, because I kind of like this color. So really all I'm doing here is I'm just picking up an object that I like, cutting it out as much as I want to or as much as I can. I'm not going all the way to the edge because I like this color in the background, but I could have totally gone to the edge of this cell phone and cut out all of this background and made it just look like a little phone. But I kind of like the background color, so I'm going to keep it. And I am going to rub some glue on the back, flip it over, and then find a spot. Just gonna put it maybe right up here. And just smooth that down. So now I've got one piece on there. So I might save these for later. Changed my mind on those. I'm gonna keep them, but I'm gonna save them for later. The next thing I wanna add is some of this drawn on paper. So I am going to just chop out a little rectangle of it, I think, and line that up more or less with an edge down here, and I'm just going to glue that down. So you see how collage, you don't really have to have an idea of what you want to do. You can just kind of start randomly putting stuff in places you think you might like it, and then just kind of look at it and think about what else you might want to add in here. So I think I'm gonna put this big yellow skirt. So I am actually gonna cut around the edges and try to get as close as I can and cut it until I'm happy with the way that it looks. Alright, so now that I've got this cut out the way I like it, let me get rid of this. And then I'm going to arrange this how I like it on my paper. So I'm thinking I might try to cover up both of these corners over here by bringing that over and covering them up. Obviously this is going to go off of my paper, that's okay. So I'm going to flip this back over. Looks like we had a card back here. And I'm just going to rub some glue on it and place it. Just kind of have some overhanging pieces on my artwork. And I think for now, at least, I'm going to keep it that way. I'm just going to keep it overlapping because I kind of like the way that looks. So now I'm going to find something else I want to add in. So I'm going to choose these flowers. I'm going to cut these somewhat close. And think about where I might want this. So, kind of like that. Maybe I'll put it down here. Yeah, I like it right there. So far in my piece, I have this yellow color I really liked, and a shape I really liked from it. I've got some flowers, which I really like, and I've got a cell phone, and then some drawings with some colors that I really like in them. So this is already becoming sort of a self-portrait that just doesn't really look like me, right? So that's our goal here. We're just kind of having fun, taking some stuff that represents us. So I'm going to keep adding some more stuff to this, guys, and then I will come back and we can kind of talk about where I'm at. I will say there's one thing about this project, and any collage really, that you could do, and if you're using, especially if you're using stick glue, your fingers get really sticky, and sometimes it gets hard to stick things down because you just have glue all over yourself. I'm getting all sticky and stuff sticking to my fingers. So now I have started moving on to words. So I have them sort of glued down to my painted paper, and I cut them out in some fun little shapes, and I'm just going to start placing them on here. And I think these are going to be the last few things that I add. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. One thing while you're making your collages that might be helpful is to start placing things before you actually put glue on the back of them. Just kind of place them and see, like, do I like that there? Like, I might put this right here, and then just kind of start setting things around and see how you like the way things look. I might switch these. I think I like that. Yeah. I think I like the way that looks. So then what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna glue them down like I did everything else. I think I'm gonna add in one more thing, just this cute little cat. So the last thing I'm gonna do, if I've decided I've actually become happy with this piece, is I think I'm gonna cut off the stuff that's hanging off of the edges. So how I'm gonna do that is I'm gonna flip this over and find all of these parts that hang off of the edge of this piece, and I'm just gonna snip them right off. If you chose to do this project along with me, I hope you enjoyed it. Please tag me in pictures on Instagram of you and your work, or just of your work. I'd love to see it. I hope you guys stay creative and have a great day. Bye!